nerdy, unqualified, and absolutely indistinguishable from rambling. Welcome to the A&D Show.
Now don't do this, okay? It's been multiple years. It's been like, what, 4 years now? This is probably going to get out of hand.
Hello, and welcome back to the A&D Show. I'm David.
I'm Austin.
And we have some juicy deets to share. That's not what the kids are saying these days. We've got some tea to spill.
I feel like that's worse. David, I'm in my late 30s. Okay, like I don't know that I can use these words. I'm at the point in life where, like someone said, "No, man, that's cap," and I immediately went to Urban Dictionary. I'm like, "What did I just? What was I just told?" And apparently that means I was lying. I don't think I was at the time, but I'm told that I was lying. So I don't know. I'm at the point in life where I gotta look up words. It's depressing. It's getting to the point now where I'm just getting old.
Yeah. Well, I turned 33 last week. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. Just a couple days before our first episode of season 4. So happy birthday, me.
Twice. Double birthdays.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, double birthdays. It's a long story.
Very long story, but David has 2 birthdays, so good for him.
Yeah. We may have to put a special episode about that or something
really
when I turn 35.
We really should.
2 more years, and then we'll do an episode about it.
I feel like we should. That'd be good.
Yeah. No, so I feel your pain about... I absolutely hate it when I see those videos on YouTube and this guy's are like, "Is this a fact or a cap? Let's test." And I'm like, oh God.
Busted.
Is there anything more obnoxious than a YouTube personality? If you can call it a personality. Just being like, "Oh, let's find out if these people are lying to us." Ugh.
Just say, are you lying or not? We are way off topic already. We are 3 minutes into this. Good job for us.
This episode is just going to be a dumpster fire. It's fine. Before we get started, I do want to let our viewing audience and listening audience know, if you haven't heard, we have added a new way for you to connect with us and join in the discussion. We want to hear this season, Austin, you'll agree, that we are kind of turning over a new leaf, if you will. We're not so much just interested in what we have to say about these topics. We want to hear from you.
What we have to say is probably the most important, but also what is the general peasantry think?
The general peasantry, that's you listeners. No, so if you will go to our YouTube channel, comment a link or comment on the bottom of the video, down underneath the video. We'd love to hear from you there. But the best way that we are working on this is with our brand new, what we call the A&D Show pod blog. And it is available on our website. Currently, we're having some technical issues, so our domain name hasn't been linked yet. So our temporary domain name is adshowofficial.wixsite.com/my site, I believe. If not, it's pinned at the top of our Facebook page. You can go and get it there. But come through there, read our post-episode blog post where we kind of give a little bit of a summation of what we talked about and some further thoughts, and then comment.
Right.
Put some feedback in there. My brother, he is our first commenter on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. And it was in, did you just call him Peter?
Yep.
That's not his name, but it's fine.
It's close.
We can call him Peter. That's okay. Close enough. He probably would appreciate the anonymity, even though when you go to our website, you can see his actual name. So Peter, my brother Peter, the Peter, if you will, commented, and he had some great insight. Well, he just commiserated with our opinions about the MCU. He's like, yeah, it's pretty much hot garbage. He told me he's like, I feel like I'm a little bit more maybe optimistic about the future of the MCU than you guys are, but I definitely agree that what they're putting out currently is
terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, not great.
Which really,
we're not here to talk about the MCU tonight, though.
It's a good segue into the real hot topic of the evening, the DC.
Yes. Extended universe.
So I went back this week and this weekend, and I kind of reviewed the very, very beginning of the DC films. The first big one was Batman. I mean, I guess there were Superman movies before that, and those were always pretty popular. Some of them kind of went trashy. But the first one that I remember for me was Batman in '89, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, Keaton.
It was beautiful,
absolutely phenomenal.
Nicholson. Nicholson up until Ledger was the de facto Joker, and I mean, Kevin Conroy, and the Mark Hamill's, or not Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill doing the Joker was always phenomenal. But Ledger came along and just changed the entire thing until Well, and we'll get to the new Jokers later, but when you go through the DC lineup of all their movies, I mean there are some stinkers in there. Steel in '97, really bad. Catwoman in '04, really bad. Superman,
hold on.
No, don't defend it.
Put the brakes on. I'm not going to defend it, but I am going to say that Halle Berry is a fantastic actress.
Yeah,
she did a lot to make that movie worth watching.
Could have been worse.
But I will say, Halle, I know you're watching. I know you're a fan of the AD show, Halle. And I do want to say to you, we know you hated that movie as much as everybody else did, but we still appreciate you.
Right.
You're a phenomenal actress. You keep doing what you do, Halle. And, Anyway, so go on.
Superman Returns in '06. I remember being 2/3 of the way into the movie. I have never had to go to the bathroom that bad in my entire life. And I'm holding it thinking like sure,
something good's coming.
Get better. This is going to get better. Like if I go to the bathroom now, I'm going to miss it. And I should have gone to the bathroom when the opening credits began and just never came back. It was terrible. But then you begin.
Wait. Let me pause you again real quick, because I got to say to my boy, Brandon Routh, who is also watching this show, he's a huge fan. Brandon, we know that you are a great actor and that film was not bad based on your acting. It was based on the writing.
I blame Brandon. But
you can blame Brandon if you want. I thought Brandon did a great job. So that's all I'll say.
But what's frustrating is Superman Returns is sandwiched between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Two of the most iconic movies. So Begins came out in 05.
Between the two?
Begins was in 05. Superman Returns was in 06.
Oh, I did not know that.
So I will openly admit that 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, there was a difficult time in my life, and I didn't realize that Batman Begins came out until probably 06. Like I think I saw it when it came out on DVD at the time. I don't remember knowing that it was in theaters. And I was always a Batman guy growing up. That was always my cup of tea, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. Dark Knight came out, and I don't know that I've ever been that hyped for a movie in my entire life. I don't know that there's ever been a movie that I'm like, I've got to see this more than The Dark Knight. Even Rises. Rises was a great movie. And then after Rises, you begin this Snyder era that was unfortunately cut far too short.
I agree.
I think we discussed it last week. The tragic suicide of his daughter, and he left the films, and they were just totally redone, and they were redone poorly. And we had the Snyder Cut for the Justice League, and it was phenomenal. But we're in this kind of new era now with DC, with their films, with their shows, and they're not level with the MCU yet, but boy, they're coming up pretty fast. The Joker was beautiful. Shazam was funny. Joaquin Phoenix, the way that he portrayed the Joker and the way that movie was done by Todd Phillips. I mean, it was because we know that there are books like The Killing Joke that give this pseudo origin story for the Joker, but part of the allure of the Joker is that there is no canon origin story. It's just you're up to whatever you want to believe or whatever interpretation you want to use. And we're not going to talk about Jared Leto's Joker. I think it was a good Joker. I was fine with it. It was a little bit campy, but Jared Leto is a really good actor. I think about how bad Morbius could have been if Leto wasn't in that. The movie in general was terrible, but I enjoy watching Jared Leto act. I think that he's a nice actor to watch.
Let me chime in real quick on your opinions there. Have you seen the HBO? I think it wasn't an HBO Max original, but it was something that was one of their simulcast release video movies or whatever, blockbusters from sometime last year, called all the little things, I think it was, and it had Denzel, and it had Rami Malek, and then it had Jared Leto. There were the three primary cast, and it was all about them trying to find this girl who'd gone missing, and they suspected Jared Leto of being the. Yeah, did you see that film?
Yeah, is that what it's called?
I think the little things, or
whatever it is,
small things, or something like that.
So well done,
fantastic movie.
So well done,
great casting. Because for all Jared Leto's pitfalls, I mean, he's not a perfect person. I didn't dislike his version of the Joker. The thing that kind of put me off of it was just the reports of his actions while on set. Yeah, things that he did, and those were carried through. He's one of those method actors. Yeah, that kind of carries things a little too far. Whenever he was doing Morbius, the rumor was that he would walk on the crutches to the bathroom and delay shooting for like 45 minutes because he wanted to stay in character. Stuff like that. I don't really agree with that. I think that's dumb. But for all his pitfalls, when he hits his stride, he hits it well.
Good.
And The Small Things is a really good example of him at the peak of his craft, because he was fantastically unnerving and creepy and just overall disgusting.
I highly recommend that miniseries to anybody that's looking for, a 4 or 5 episode show just to kind of binge.
Which one are you talking about?
The Small Things or whatever.
No, that was a film. It was just a film.
It was a movie. I couldn't remember if it's a movie or if it's a film.
It was just a one-off.
I enjoyed it.
It was really good.
Oh, you're right.
Really good.
That's right, because it came out during COVID. You're right.
Yeah, and it was long. I mean, it could have been if they'd broken it out into half-hour episodes, it could easily have been a series, because it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes long. It was long. But
Leto was really good. And then Todd Phillips comes in and he changes kind of everything, and takes this movie out of the DCEU and puts it in its own universe. And then we get the Batman. Now, we had our season 3 or season 4.01 or whatever you want to call it, our one episode.
Yeah.
And we had talked extensively on the Batman. I don't want to belabor the point here, but I want to make a few notes of what we had said back then. I had specifically lamented on Pattinson being Batman, and I had talked about, listen, take Twilight out of it. If you look at any movie that Pattinson's been in, he is a phenomenal, fantastic actor, and he will absolutely crush it in this role. And I said that repeatedly to anyone that would listen, how good he was going to be in this movie. And he killed it. Man, he killed it. I still can't believe Colin Farrell was Penguin. Like it just looked like him.
And he just threw himself into that role too. He just absorbed. He was completely. Colin Farrell was gone, and it was just the Penguin.
Every casting in that movie, from Zoe Kravitz to Pattinson to the entire cast, every single person is perfectly picked for this movie. It's so well done.
I will say I was a little bit nervous about Paul Dano as the Riddler. I remember him in his role from Looper with Bruce Willis. And I liked, I really enjoyed that film. And I thought the character arc, if you haven't seen that film, pause this episode and go watch it first, because I'm about to drop a major spoiler, but and then come back. Okay, you're back now. All right, good. We'll go on.
40 years. Okay, sorry. Spoiler alerts don't count. It came out in 2010.
Right. His character arc, Paul Dano's character arc, where he loops back, fails to kill himself in the loop, and then they take his younger self into some sort of like cryptic dark chamber and start cutting him to pieces while his older self tries to come back, and the limbs are like disappearing and stuff. That was extremely dark and very disturbing to watch. And of course, it wasn't graphic. It wasn't real like bloody or gory, but just knowing that this person is still alive and having limbs removed, it was just, it was rough. But that kind of Paul Dano's portrayal of somebody who is so petrified and scared for their life and just kind of off the rails, just unhinged.
Right.
I noticed watching him, particularly in the closing scenes of the Batman, watching him channel that into this character was fantastic. And just to see the way that he was able to kind of bring that unhinged, just kind of darkness to the character in a similar way to Heath Ledger was really, really cool. I was never more happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah. And in the live action universe, the only Joker we've had, the only Riddler we've had was Jim Carrey.
Yeah, and it was a wild departure from that version.
And I had said that I had expectations for a few different villains on the show. I talked about Calendar Man. I talked about was it Hush? I was talking about being on there, and they weren't. But there's a lot of room for growth for the future. For the past 10 years, minus a couple decent movies here or there, the primary breadwinner for fans of DC movies were the animated films. Almost every animated film that came out has been an absolute banger. I mean, they've all been great. You've had stuff like Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. You've had Batman, a Batman Year One. You've had Superman Doomsday, Justice League Doom, Batman's Under the Red Hood, Batman Gotham Knight. I mean, just so many. And honestly, if you're a fan, even the old ones, Mask of the Phantasm, the Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, phenomenal. They're all great. Probably my favorite one, the animated wise that they did was was Batman Hush, and the Killing Joke. The Killing Joke was probably one of, if not the darkest, Batman kind of like mini series comic line that was done. I enjoyed it, and then Death in the Family, which if you've not read Death in the Family, that was where Joker kills Robin, and but the animated movies were so well done. And that was where if you were a real fan of DC, that's where you got your kicks from, was the animated movies, because they were great. I mean, the voice always on par. It was great. But now you see this kind of shifting tide for DC with what's kind of coming on board. Black Adam looks, dare I say, exciting-ish. The Flash may be dead because they can't find Ezra Miller because he's on the run from the law for grooming, but that's besides the point. I've
got some input on that here later, but
there's a lot of situations that we're looking at now with these movies that is DC kind of turning the corner and getting to where they need to be to. Now, I will openly say I have not seen Aquaman. The first one, I know the second one's coming out.
It was great. It was really good.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. And I think Jason Momoa is a great Aquaman. The problem is that I'm afraid that if my wife sees Jason Momoa as Aquaman not wearing a shirt, I'm going to get left.
Well, here's the deal. Your wife, if your wife is up on pop cultural type situations of any kind, she probably won't be all that interested in that movie because Amber Heard's in it. Now, I will say, that despite the cultural dislike, the kind of worldwide shame that she's gone through with how she's treated Johnny Depp and that whole snafu, she didn't do a bad job in that film. Right. I much preferred, she wasn't great in the Justice League movie. I much preferred the version of her character that Snyder did with the Snyder's Justice League. But her in that standalone Aquaman film, the film was beautiful. It was in the same vein of animation and bright, colorful vibrancy as what you saw with Pacific Rim.
Clips that I've seen are beautiful visually.
Yeah. And it was just a great story too. And it had a lot of promise. And I think there was one film that they cut before they really pushed through with it. They were going to make a film called The Trench that was going to lean into some of the kind of scarier elements that they showed in the Aquaman standalone film. And I wish that they would have done that, but I think they pulled that one pretty quickly. But because at the time, they were still trying to kind of push themselves away from the dark side of DC. But the problem with that is that their IP, it's almost exclusively dark and gritty. And you can't really...
Always been that way.
You can't really ostracize yourself from your identity,
Because thing is, I understand that you're marketing movies for the masses, and I get that. I understand that. But your core fan base are people that read comics, or at least keep up with comics, or understand what the comics are about. And when you change what you are and who you are, you're ostracizing a large portion of your fan base to make a few extra bucks, but without realizing that if you stick to what you do, people dogged on Batman vs Superman, and you and I both loved it.
Yeah,
loved it.
Yeah,
and people dogged it because it wasn't the Avengers. There were two good Avengers movies. The rest of them are not. I mean, they're fine movies. But I don't want to watch. Not everything I watch has to be bright and funny, and the little quips here and there. Batman and Superman. They were a team, but in the comics, Batman never fully trusts Superman. He always had weapons at the ready to kill him if he had to, because he knew the danger.
That was a major plot point in pretty much every Justice League storyline was that there was always this undercurrent of distrust from Batman to all the other supes. And the reason was because they were enhanced. And if any one of them ever stepped across that line from hero to villain, that he would have some way of saving the world from the hero. And he had this whole library of ways to take down any one of them. And that was a huge plot point.
And they had vaguely hinted on that in BVS when he was building the team. And, because, he was studying them and, he had files and all them, but it was just kind of glossed over. It wasn't, and so, they make him out to be best buddies and whatever. And, they worked together, but there was always, like you said, there was always a level of distrust between Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. And it was primarily from Bruce Wayne to Clark Kent. Clark Kent, Superman always knew that if he had to, he believed he could crush Batman. I don't believe that same logic personally. Batman will always be superior to Superman because he always had a plan to destroy Superman if necessary. But
brains over brawn,
right? And I always like The Dark Knight and even Batman Begins. It changed the entire superhero landscape. It showed that you could do it gritty and dark and broody, and it was so well done. And part of it's Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan will go down as one of the best directors of all time, and it won't be close. I
agree.
He will be one. He will be on the Mount Rushmore film directors. The trailer for Oppenheimer, which is like a minute long, it looks incredible, and you barely see anything. But knowing the subject matter, knowing that no one's attached to direct it, is going to be an amazing movie.
Even movies that he's done that confused the entirety of its audience, like Tenet. Tenet was a phenomenal film.
I watched it four times. And finally I'm Googling, what does this movie mean? What happened in this movie? And I'm reading through it because I couldn't comprehend it. But every time I watched it, I would glean a little more, and I would enjoy other pieces of it more and more and more. And it was I mean, his movies you can watch over and over. I can still watch The Dark Knight, and I can still watch Begins, and I can still watch Rises today after watching them 45 to 50 times easily, and still love every second of it.
Now, I want to say something. I want to jump in here quickly because we're talking about Warner Brothers. We're talking about DC and the future and the present of it. And we're seeing what I think could be the turning of the tides in favor of DC over Marvel. Not that they're direct competitors, but they are competing for the market. And I think that people, like we talked about in our previous episode, and I won't rehash it, but I think people are getting tired of what Marvel's putting out. And I'm thinking that Marvel is starting to lose a grip on their audience. And I it's unfortunate because I've liked what they've done so far, up until Spider-Man No Way Home, I should say. But I think that DC is kind of they're backpedaling a little bit on some of their creative decisions. And whenever you look at everything that they came out with few exceptions, they had the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, which was great. But when you look at what they've done previous to the Batman, they've really kind of trended more toward brighter, happier, funnier, goofier.
Yeah, and Wonder Woman 84 was terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah,
I tried so hard. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was embarrassing for the character because she's such a bad, awesome character. But anyway, and then you see them come out with the Batman, and since the Batman, they had a really fantastic return to form when they hit the Batman. And I feel like they really kind of hit their stride with that film. And if they can learn what the response of the audience is, and like we talked about in the last episode, this change of leadership and then starting to cut ties with certain things, projects that are going to be an embarrassment more than a help to them, I think it's going to be a good thing. And I've got a quote from David Zaslav, the new CEO or whatever of WB. I want to read it really quick. He says, I'm just going to read you this article clip that I pulled. It seems like after spending years attempting to fast-track the DCEU to a Marvel level, it has been realized that the only way to make the DCEU into a Marvel-sized success is to do what Kevin Feige started doing in 2008. This is what Zaslav explained. He says, "Our ambition is to bring Warner's back and to produce great, high-quality films. And as we look at the opportunities that we have broadly, DC is one of the top of our list. You look at Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. These are the brands that are known everywhere in the world. The ability to drive those all over the world with a great story is a big opportunity for us. We have done a reset." And this is in response to his their kind of like chopping block that they put, Batgirl and a few other things onto. We've done a reset. We have restructured the business. We are going to focus. There will be a team with a 10-year plan focusing just on DC. It's very similar to the structure that Alan Horn and Bob Iger put together very effectively with Kevin Feige at Disney. We think that we could build a long-term, much stronger, sustainable growth business out of DC. As a part of that, we're going to focus on quality. We're not going to release any film before it's ready. We're not going to release a film to make a quarter. We're not going to release a film until the focus is going to be how do we make each of these films in general as good as possible. But DC is something that we think we could make better, and we're focusing on it now. We have some great DC films coming up, Black Adam, Shazam, Flash, and we're working on all of those. We're very excited about them. And the most recent news that I heard is that I want to say, I can't remember which film it is, but there is a film coming out of DC Film that they are retooling the ending of it to be more in line with Snyder's vision and direction.
Good.
Potentially. So I take that as a pretty big comfort. You know me, audience, you may not know me, but here's some insight into me. I'm a huge DC fan. Batman, Superman, The Flash, like those have been my characters from my childhood. I remember the first toy I ever lost that it just broke my heart. And it was a little tiny Superman about this long. And he was like stuck to the side of a coffee mug and you could pop him off and play with him. And I loved that toy and I lost him and it was devastating. So I'm bought in. I'm completely in. And so I look at this kind of feedback, and we're running out of time, so I won't say too much more, but I look at this kind of feedback and this kind of public statement from Zaslav, the new director of WB. And I think, yes, there might be some hope. Maybe we won't get what we all hope for, which is the return of the Snyderverse and to see, Zack's vision completely fleshed out. But at the very least, hopefully, we'll start to see Discovery and Warner come back with this kind of idea of, let's stop focusing on this and let's start focusing on a micro level. Let's start focusing on each film to make each film as good as possible. And that is exciting.
Well, and one thing that I've liked the most about this DC EU are films like Joker, and then you got Joker 2, Folie à Deux coming out, the Batman 2 coming out, that they're outside of the universe. This idea that every film has to be connected is exhausting. Honestly, if I go watch a Batman movie, I want a Batman movie. I don't want, a Batman and 10 characters movie. I want a Batman movie where he's fighting crime and fighting Batman's villains. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's me, now granted, I've already said I liked BVS. I liked the Justice League movie. I really liked the Justice League Snyder cut. Love the Snyder cut. Okay.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
But those are also movies that are advertised or built around multiple characters. Batman doesn't need to have other characters coming in. This idea that with with some of the Marvel movies, you've got Doctor Strange and you've got other characters coming in, and Spider-Man, other characters coming in. I just want my movie. That's what I want. And so I'm excited about the future of DC. I did just start watching Arrow, which is in the DC. I'm assuming the alternate universe. It's enjoyable. Better than I expected. But I think people forget that there are DC properties out there that are still really good, that aren't necessarily superheroes. Constantine with Keanu Reeves is a great movie. I loved it. The Red movies with Bruce Willis were really, really good. Jonah Hex was trash, but hey, they tried.
I mean, here's the thing. Josh Brolin, before he stepped into the shoes of Cable and
good.
What's his name? Purple Face.
Thanos.
Josh, and he played Jonah Hex in that film. And that film, you're right, it was not a good film. It was really, really dumb. But I will say, it obviously didn't hurt Jonah, or obviously didn't hurt Josh all that much. And it's cool to see that. Right. It's cool to see that he kind of comes back and his return to form in comic book character acting as Thanos and Cable, which my wife and I just watched the Deadpool films. I've seen them.
They are rough around the edges.
Very
so good.
Yeah, but
there are so many, we forget about.
Hold on, we are out of time. We might have to do another episode of this.
V for Vendetta is a DC movie and it's phenomenal.
There you go, and we'll end on that. So connect with us on our social medias. We'll see you next time.